And so I just find the language and the comments of my colleague from Vermont deeply disturbing and insulting and misleading. Why can't we just say anti-Semitism on college campuses is wrong? Why can't we have a full stop right there? Perhaps it's because the politics of it is so entangled that the quagmire pit, we must have everything thrown into the bucket. As opposed to just speaking the truth, why can't we just condemn anti-Semitism on its face? Why is it so hard for my Democratic colleagues to condemn what Senator Sanders says, and I agree, the oldest form of hate in the world? Why can't we just do that right now? The politics suggests that to be politically correct, we must include everybody. Well, everybody is not being impacted. That's why people are so disgusted with politics.
Failed Republican presidential candidate Tim Scott is putting on the performance of a lifetime on the Senate floor while debating Bernie Sanders about the peaceful protests happening on college campuses nationwide.
Maybe the reason that they are disgusted with politics is, despite what the vast majority of the American people want, the United States government is continuing to provide billions of dollars in military aid to the right-wing extremist Netanyahu government. Senator Scott said it's a coalition government. It is. It is right-wing extremists in coalition with out-and-out racists. That's the coalition. And people are disgusted because they don't want to see their money going to kill more women and children in Gaza.
Exactly. This is precisely what every protest on university campuses has been about, outside from detractors who are in the minority. It has nothing to do with hatred for Jewish people, Jewish faith, or anything associated with Jewish culture. It has everything to do with our tax dollars being used for tools of death when we could be using those funds to improve infrastructure, our healthcare system, the public education system, you name it. But you're never going to hear that from the likes of Tim Scott or the vast majority of our political establishment.
Remember what happened a number of months ago in November, I believe, of 23. 3 young Palestinian college students were shot at close range in my city. Islamophobia in this country is on the rise. If you're a Palestinian walking the streets, you better be careful. So the idea that we should not, as a nation and as a Congress, come together to address anti-Semitism, absolutely. But Islamophobia, we have, as you know, some people out there talking about the Chinese flu and Kung flu. If you think that that does not provoke anti-Asian behavior on the part of some, you would be mistaken. So I think what is appropriate is for us to condemn anti-Semitism, which is exactly what my resolution does, but make it clear that all forms of bigotry in this country are unacceptable. No to anti-Semitism, no to Islamophobia, no to all forms of racism and bigotry. And Mr. President, as we do our best to combat racism and all of its ugly manifestations, we must also hold our heads high and with pride as we honor the First Amendment to our Constitution. That, Mr. President, is what a free country is about: the right to disagree with government and the right to protest. And those are rights that every member of Congress should respect, no matter what one's political point of view may be. Protesting injustice is part of the American tradition, going back to the very founders of this country, and has played a fundamental role in recent decades in the fight to overcome racism, sexism, homophobia, and other forms of discrimination. I would remind my colleagues, for example, that the success of the civil rights movement was due in large part to sit-ins and occupations where young black and white Americans bravely took up space in private businesses, demanding an end to the racial discrimination and segregation that existed at that time. You know, despite what some people think here, government policy regarding wars is not always right. In fact, in recent history, it has mostly been wrong.
Now that we've seen just how badly Bernie pummeled Scott, let's hear some of Scott's arguments that prompted the beatdown in the first place.
In the 1960s, when there were black students, what did they want then? It wasn't a resolution condemning all hate when they were the only target of the hate. It was support for those who were being victimized in the moment. And so I just find the language and the comments of my colleague from Vermont deeply disturbing and insulting and misleading. My resolution is quite simple. It condemns the rampant anti-Semitism on college campuses. I think the senator and I could do this all night long. I'd be happy to, frankly. I don't think we will get to the place where we just have a clear statement condemning anti-Semitism.
One, Bernie Sanders was cooking Tim Scott left and right during that whole session, bringing historical context to what is going on at all these college campuses for the peaceful protests, civil rights movement, and how important it was to stage these sit-ins and occupations, to hold establishments accountable, hold the government accountable, and change the way black people were treated and marginalized people. Tim Scott, all he's doing is muddying the waters and conflating anti-Semitism to being against the Israeli government. And what the Israeli government is doing is pure evil. And the fact that he's conflating these two is only going to lead to real acts of anti-Semitism and other forms of bigotry. Just like Bernie Sanders said. It frustrates me so much because the people who are in charge of this country, like Tim Scott, have done a disservice to their citizens, to their constituents. Well, maybe some of them want it, but there are so many things wrong with his frame of mind and the fact that he's not the only one to share it. I am disgusted. For Rebel HQ, I'm Chris Williamson. We'll see you next time.